Just a few minutes ago, Boris Johnson spoke to the House of Commons at Prime Minister's questions, and he has now officially apologised regarding that Downing Street garden party.
I want to apologise. There were things we simply did not get right. And I must take responsibility. Number 10 is a big department with the garden as an extension of the office. And when I went into that garden just after 6 on the 20th of May 2020, I believed implicitly that this was a work event. With hindsight, I should have sent everyone back inside, even if it could be said technically to fall within the guidance. There would be millions and millions of people who simply would not see it that way. To them and to this House, I offer my heartfelt apologies.
Well, isn't that incredible? Even if it didn't technically fall within the definition of the guidance that we were all understanding, he's sorry, but is he really sorry? Because I've got one thing to say. If a garden is an office, where's the printer? Where's the computer? All over Britain, people who had to work were working, and if they had to take a breather outside, the people working for the National Health Service, if they had to go outside for a cigarette break or just a breather, they weren't having wine and cheese and tables specially set up for the occasion. I think it's just disgraceful that that's an apology, but not an apology. That's what Boris is so good at.
Yeah, well, it reminded me of that Little Britain sketch, you know, when they're that MP and he's saying, I fell over, and do you know the sketch I mean? Yes. I can't say on daytime television because it's a bit rude, but there was a lot of that in there. So he was sort of like, you know, this was not right. Yes, the word you're looking for, Boris, is wrong. And that sort of, you know, little did I know when I stepped out into the garden.
But he stepped out for 25 minutes in this event, which wasn't a party. It was an event that was pre-organised by email with people bringing alcohol.
When he said, we're making the most, not him, Martin Reynolds, we're making the most of the lovely weather, bring a bottle, etc., all of the things that point towards party. Listen, it came hot on the heels of Neil Ferguson stepping down, didn't it, because of he breached the rules. We'd had Dominic Cummings apologising about Barnard Castle, etc. Listen, for me, I just can't get the stupidity of it, the optics of doing something like this. You know, I mean, all of us, we're on the telly. We were especially, you know, a lot of people around the country were probably breaking rules. Some of our friends were maybe breaking the rules. But we didn't, because we thought, we'll get caught out, and we're on the telly, so we've really got to stick to the rules. The notion that the Prime Minister did not think like that astounds me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is such a non-apology. It kind of reminds me of being young and your boyfriend cheats on you and gaslights you with this explaining in this really mumble-jumbled way and basically not saying sorry. He might as well have not done that. But, you know, I don't want to trivialise it, because actually people are sharing pictures of relatives dying on FaceTime, dying alone, and that's their last memory. And that's just a real punch in the stomach for me. I mean, I'm fortunate that I didn't lose anyone in the pandemic, but seeing that, I think that just doesn't cut the mustard.
I mean, a lot of people were thinking there could have been like a pre-statement today at one point, which didn't happen. And then, of course, this is now the big apology. Is there something in the fact that, you know, he had to put his hands up and say sorry? Will this be enough for people to accept? Will they say, well, he has stood up there, he said sorry, it maybe wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, they were obviously all working together, it just happened to be out in the garden, and yes, wine and cheese was involved. Will this be enough for the public to potentially say, we're in this now? I mean, what's the point in changing?
Didn't he say recently he was sickened by reports of a party?
When Allegra Stratton, the video of her rehearsing for getting the job as media advisor was leaked, he said he was sickened by the contents of that video where she was making a joke about a party and wine and cheese being served. It just comes back to the fact that he's wriggled out of it by saying now he's going to wait for the results of the inquiry, because that statement that he made, he was then asked by Keir Starmer, are you going to resign? And, of course, he shuffled out of that by saying, I'm going to wait for the results of Sue Gray's inquiry.
I mean, undoubtedly, he's very politically damaged, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens next in terms of who was and wasn't at that party, because they could then emerge as the next contender, because they're not going to call an election. They've got a majority. They've got another, 3 years to go. If they are going to get rid of him within the party, they'll then find somebody else to step up and hopefully to sort of lead the party for the next 3 years until they do have to go to the
But I suppose the big question is, was Rishi Sunak at the party?
Yeah.
That's the big question. No one's got an answer to
and if he
yet.
obviously has been, it's a
And
difficult
anyone,
position for him.
if the process that Jane's talked about starts to unfold, anyone who replaces Boris Johnson will be now subjected to intense interrogation and detective work on what they were doing during the pandemic.
Yeah. It's the emotional side for me, as you say, Katie.
Yeah.
It's all of those people who were really struggling, losing loved ones, people in hospital on their own, not being able to give their loved ones a final hug. That's a very bitter pill to swallow, I think, for the normal person sitting at home watching that. Apology or no apology.